Shumatsu no Valkyrie, aka Record of Ragnorok, is nearly upon us with its highly anticipated, if not highly scrutinized, anime adaptation coming this year on June 21st, 2021. Animated by Grafnica, who only got their studio up and rolling in April of 2009. They are also known for Boku wa Osama, Juni Taisen Zodiac War, and Restage Dream Days. I can't say I've ever seen any of these titles myself, but from what I gathered through my research, Zodiac War seems to be the closest to what Shumatsu no Valkyrie is all about. Essentially, a giant tournament arc pitting these interesting, if not highly fanservice-y representations of the various astrology signs. The animation looks smooth, characters' environments are accented with nice, thick, bold lines, and the fight scenes, mind you, this is just me watching various clips online, the fight scenes look very well choreographed. After frantically reading the first available 45 chapters, I can hope for nothing less from Grafnica but greatness. Authors Fukui Takumi and Umemura Shinya and illustrator Chika Aji have put together a piece of art that deserves no less than to be translated as flawlessly as possible in animation. The plot, though epic in its execution, is very simple. Every 10,000 years, each god from around the world come together for a huge conference on what to do about the human race. As you'd probably assume, and you'd be right, humanity in the eyes of the omnipotent, perfect gods is anything but redeemable, saying humans are destructive, wasteful, and just plain evil in nature. It's very quickly brought to the census that the gods should just wipe them all out. One god even suggests trying to evolve a different animal this time. Thanks. Really. Luckily for humanity, within the crowd of human haters are the Valkyrie, half-god, half-human entities whose very duty and existence rests upon the protection of the human race. Brunhild, the head of the Valkyries, is foul-mouthed, headstrong, and has some of the best facial expressions ever drawn in anime. Period. I think it needs to be said here that the illustrator of Record of Ragnorok, Chika Aji, is absolutely amazing, and not only the vast landscapes he creates, but also the sheer level of emotions he evokes. I mean, a lot of the time I get huge Hiroya Oku vibes, who you guys may know as the mangaka who wrote Gantz, another very good manga, by the way. His use of what I call these like Oni faces, these like demon-looking faces, they're like over-exaggerated expressions that like at first glance can be really jarring. I will admit, and like sometimes may even seem ugly, but I love these. I'll put some over here somewhere. It's a brilliant way of like depicting, I think, like raw power, emotion, ferocity, or even just like intentionally invoking like fear into the reader. I really appreciate these types of panels. They're all contorted and stretched and psychotic and like heavily shaded. Yeah, these panels are bomb. I fucking love these panels. Okay, side rant over. Where were we? Okay, Brunhild, the emo queen herself, completely insults a stadium full of gods more or less calling them the biggest wussies, for lack of a better word, for agreeing to take out humanity without even giving them a chance to fight back. Thus, the ancient and long-forgotten tournament called Ragnarok is mentioned for the first time. The head honcho Zeus is more than a little amused by this big brain play to trick the gods, and he accepts the challenge, pitting 13 gods versus 13 heroes of humanity against each other. Now begins the tournament arc to end all tournament arcs. I'd argue it's up there with the likes of Grappler Baki, another martial arts seinen with a huge cult anime manga following. And how does this legendary tournament begin? Well, Thor! Yes, the very same hammer-wielding Norse god of thunder. But this ain't your Mickey Mouse Clubhouse watered-down variant. Oh no. Pretty much the only thing that makes them even remotely similar is their love for battle, though even then they express it completely differently. I mean, this version of Thor wields a Mjolnir so comically large it looks like an oversized whack-a-mole mallet from Chuck E. Cheese's. Even more impressive, it's a living weapon. More on that later. But on the other side of the ring, we have Ryofu Hosen, aka Lu Bu, aka China's strongest hero, was a vicious 2nd century general and warlord. Throughout actual history, he was known and best described as the mightiest warrior, notorious for his moody and erratic behavior, which often even meant turning on his own allies. True to his fictional counterpart, Lu Bu only ever dreamed of becoming the strongest, no matter what the cost. He even got his start at being a warlord himself by killing Ding Yuan, the very warlord he served under. So here we have a noble warrior and a brutal warlord, both who claim to be the strongest and have never been matched in battle. Besides this, the only thing they can claim to have in common is the boredom they both experienced after never finding a worthy opponent. Seems like a match made in heaven, if you ask me. Having someone who could actually rival their strength in battle was the only real reason they were there, and it's played out beautifully as these two Chad of Chads trade blows. Gods are shocked right off the bat that a mere human could even withstand one blow from the devastating god Thor. Under normal circumstances, Lu Bu's weapons along with his entire body would have been shattered. Yeah, Brunhild is one slick chick. Turns out our varied vicious Valkyrie implemented what she calls a cheat. Since the god's ability to forge divine weapons is a cheat in itself, she's taking a fight fire with fire approach, and it's brilliant. This is the first of many instances where you see how high the stakes are for humanity, and also just how diamond rock hard Brunhild's resolve is. It's shortly revealed later that the other Valkyrie sisters, who coincidentally also number in 13, will be using their ability, later coined Voland, to transform into divine weapons by sacrificing their own bodies. Within the next panels, we learn of another weapon of sorts that most depictions of Thor never even talk about, Yarngriper, gauntlets capable of withstanding any attack and believed to keep the mighty hammer Mjolnir from destroying Thor's hands. After what seems like endless panels of beautifully drawn weapon clashes and footwork, the next part of our Brunhild's cheat comes into play, Shieldbreaker. Each Valkyrie's name has a special meaning that translates into a hidden ability that the weapon then takes on. Rangris, the name of Lu Bu's Valkyrie, translates to Shieldbreaker, suddenly making it possible to shatter the unbreakable Yarngriper. Things aren't looking good for Thor. Lu Bu has impressive speed and even greater strength. He's able to draw blood on the god first, As Zeus and one of my favorite characters, Hermes, watches on, Zeus comes to realize that this whole plan, Ragnarok, the use of Volans, it's all an act of rebellion against the gods. This, however, only gives Zeus the biggest metaphorical, maybe, hard-on. And I quote, "This is the greatest thrill I've had since the Big Bang." As Brunhild would probably say, what a fucking whack job. Things really seem bad for Thor after he gets disarmed and then his hammer starts to melt and crumble away. However, what seems like destruction is actually an awakening. Remember when I said earlier that this version of Mjolnir is a living weapon? Well, turns out Mjolnir has muscle and vein, and it pulses. Yeah, shit gets weird. Weirdly awesome! This is by far one of the coolest depictions of the legendary weapon I've ever seen. I mean, come on, if Marvel's Thor didn't get Stormbreaker, but instead, Mjolnir transformed essentially into a hammer with bulging biceps and abs, you'd be hyped too. Don't lie, you would. With this comes a great monologue from Zeus. A common misconception about the relationship between Mjolnir and Jarngreipr. The glove's purpose were not to protect Thor from Mjolnir, but to protect Mjolnir, prior to awakening, from the weight of Thor's swings. And I was thinking that Thor couldn't possibly become even more of a Chad. These two powerhouses of men, though very different in a lot of ways, were similar in one singular way. They shared a boredom that was never quelled in their lives. This was displayed beautifully in their respective backstories. Now, face to face with their own contradictory counterparts, they both feel the same excitement of battle, the thrill of facing a worthy opponent with their lives on the line. Then Thor pulls off one of the craziest stances I've ever seen. Seriously, what part of this stance looks even a tiny bit possible, okay? Like, alright, here we go. I'm gonna try this. Okay, yeah. I gotta. Nope, I'm not. I'm okay. Thor launches his hammer not to hit Lu Bu, but to use the centrifugal force of it when it returns to unleash a mighty blow. Gerard, Gerald, Gerard, Geronimo? I don't know. It's really cool technique that looks like it causes a tornado and then goes BOOM! It's blocked, but not without Lu Bu's shins coming to say hello through his flesh. Guys, I can't stress enough how bad I want these emotional scenes to hit in the anime adaptation. When the red mare comes out after it sees Lu Bu go down and the entourage is losing hope, the panels that follow are nothing less of masterful. I don't know how you show genuine love and care from a horse through drawing, but Chika Aji nailed it. Quickly, Red Mare becomes a full extension of Lu Bu's own body. It is after all how he traveled across the world conquering all that opposed him. What happens next is the reason why I personally love these over-the-top martial arts manga. Pretty much reminds me of something straight out of Baki. Sky Eater. Okay, so the origin of this attack comes from our Chinese Chad Lu Bu swinging his spear one-handed atop a mountain. Sounds simple enough, only he swung them at full strength hundreds if not thousands of times until they broke. Then he'd grab another spear and start all over again. He was a simple man. And after doing this for years on end, with nothing but hopes of meeting a strong warrior one day, he swung his spear and split the fucking clouds. Ridiculous, insanity, awesome. Now on horseback at full speed, Lu Bu plans to use this very technique. In the series of panels that lead up to the clash, I can only describe it as high octane, edge of your seat, teeth clenching amazement. Thor's hammer versus Sky Eater. The shockwave, as you'd imagine, is massive and the light is blinding. The dust settles and Lu Bu's weapon is obliterated, as well as his arm, barely hanging on by bits of flesh, which he tears off with his teeth and spits to the ground like a goddamn boss. Oh, severed arm? 'Tis but a flesh wound. But the last badass thing he does is accept his own fate. He knows he's finally met his match, and what a match it was. He rides his faithful mare one last time, head first, quite literally, into Mjolnir, and he does it all with a smile. Gotta love it. Lu Bu's death, while tragic, it also felt right. The gods win the first match and humans get hit with a very cold reality. These are gods they're dealing with. Again, the way the writers Fukui and Shinya vocalize the feelings of even the minor characters in the story feel very weighted in this narrative. I think it's worth mentioning now that Lu Bu's army of 1,000 men followed him into the afterlife with honor, grace, and style. Also, earlier in this volume, the full roster of gods and humans was revealed. I'll be going over each character as they pop up in the series, though I may break it up into a smaller series just for character analysis and historical knowledge. If that's something you guys would be interested in, please let me know in the comment section below. This concludes the first entry of the Ronin review. Thank you guys for joining me today, and just the introduction pretty much in the first fight of this very underrated manga, but I have a feeling that it will pick up traction once the anime drops in just a few weeks. Super excited. And it may be bad. It might be bad attention. It might be bad traction, but we'll see. We'll see. But until then, Janet.